All right, I think we're live. So welcome everyone to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a great weekend, and thanks so much for stopping by. Like all the other usual live streams, we're going to go for about 2 hours or so. I'll give priority answering and anyone who does a super chat or a super thanks, as well as anyone who's a member there with the green usernames, they always get that priority answering. If you'd also like that, there's a link in the description and a join button somewhere as well here. So I see we have a bunch of you already joined in. So thanks so much to Theodore, Lanswath, Brian, and Danny, and Mr. 705, B. Mitchell, and Grant, Felix Grant, and Patricia, Raphael, Josh, Will, and Linda and Pete. Thanks so much, everyone. And so we'll get right into it here. So I see Theodore says, I hope all is well with you and your family, and thank you for all your videos. Well, thank you for watching. And Theodore's been going back and watching a bunch of the old stuff too, all the old car reviews and various videos. And so thanks so much. I'm glad you're enjoying all the back catalog stuff. And it's fun to see people that are experiencing some of those for the first time. It's always cool because there's a lot of good stuff from those old days that I think it's buried a lot by YouTube, but I'm going to do a better job of trying to highlight some of that, classic content in the future here soon. And Lancelot says, good evening, and I hope everyone has had a great week. My spots are an Audi TT convertible, an AMG GLE coupe, and a Cadillac CTS V Sport. Very nice. The V Sports are pretty rare these days, and that's cool to see. And also a TT convertible in the wintertime is quite the spot. So that's awesome. I honestly don't think I saw anything really noteworthy here in the past week or so. Nothing that stands out in my mind, at least. Brian says his car spot this week was a blue C7 Corvette, 1930s Ford Hot Rod. Wow, both of those are impressive too. I don't know where you're at, Brian, but seeing that stuff in the wintertime is fun. And Danny says, I drove Thursday and twice on Saturday. The Bolt is close to 77,777 miles. That's awesome. The Traverse handled the 5 inches of snow we got today well, and learned the all-wheel drive system. It has this front-wheel drive bias and you have to put it in the all-wheel drive mode. My mom struggled to get it up the driveway in front-wheel drive because the ice made the front wheel slip and slide like crazy. My mom just kept punching the gas to get going, and then I told her to put it in the all-wheel drive and straighten out, then go forward into the driveway. It got up fine. People call us annoying people because we call the Traverse the truck. Let us have our opinions. He says couldn't join Wednesday due to the fact that my high school winter concert. Well, I hope the concert went well. And it's kind of odd how GM does the button to turn on all-wheel drive. I mean, that was the thing that was more common way back in the day, but in the past decade or two, like no one else does that other than GM, and I'm not sure why, but it's glad you actually were able to turn on the all-wheel drive there and get going. We had about 5 inches of snow here overnight last night as well, and so spent basically the whole morning digging out, having fun in the snow, playing around with the family, and I love snow. So to me, it's fun, and especially like this is the snowiest Christmas time that we've had since 2013 here, but I swear this is the most snow we've had before Christmas my entire 35 years of being here, basically in Pittsburgh, almost every year. So I love it. Listening to the Christmas music and stuff with actual snow on the ground and hearing songs about snow, it's kind of nice. And it's been a buzzkill the past several years whenever it's just like, oh, it's 40 degrees or 50 degrees and I'm hearing songs about snow. This is no fun. So actually being able to, listen to those songs while I'm driving through snow and seeing snow it really, this year has not been a great year, at least for me personally, but, it's ending very nicely, I will say, with a nice, wintry scene here for Christmas time. It's always appreciated. It goes a long way for me. Hope you guys are enjoying it too. Hopefully snow wasn't too bad for any of you others, wherever you are out there. B. Mitchell says this spot should make Matt cringe. Early this week, we had a snow squall I was stuck driving in. As I was crawling along, I passed an S550 Bullet with Wisconsin plates getting off the freeway at an exit. Wow. I mean, honestly, it doesn't make me upset because I love people using their cars, and, I'm sure a lot of people, most people that own Bullets are probably, keeping them nice and garaged in the wintertime. And I did that as well. But the last year there when I had the all season tires on, I was out driving it in the wintertime as well and enjoying it. And it's I can understand, the preservation aspect, especially with a special car. But I'm a firm believer in drive it, enjoy it, as long as you're not like blatantly trashing it, which some people might think that exposing it to salt does blatantly trash it. But like for me, if you can't go 4 or 5 months without driving your car because you love it that much, get out there and enjoy it. Do your best to keep the undercarriage clean, but enjoy the car, because tomorrow's not guaranteed. So not cringing at that, but that's cool. You saw a bullet though. They're very rare sights, and especially here in the wintertime. Never really see him here, but also Two Chang's in the house. Thanks so much for rejoining the Matt Maran Motoring Club here too. Hope you're doing well, and it's been a while, so happy to see you here. Hope you're doing well. And let me see here. So Danny also said his response, a very sad one at that. Someone was driving an 88 Monte Carlo SS in the snow. It was mint too. That broke my heart. I'm surprised if it's mint that they're out there, driving it around in that. So maybe it was just they got caught in something, or maybe they do a really good job of keeping it mint, even though they drive in the wintertime. That's pretty crazy. And he says other rare spot was a 2007 Mercury Montego. That's wow, I haven't seen one of those in a while. That's fun. And Patricia says, best YouTuber ever. Thank you, Patricia. Always appreciate the kind words. And let me see here. Josh says, hey, Matt, Pittsburgh was awesome. The roads were a treat, though. Felt like I saw more snow traveling this weekend than I do in a whole year back home in Roanoke. Wow, that's crazy. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed the snow here over the past day or so, and I'm glad that Pittsburgh was awesome for you. That's great to hear. Hope you had a good time and safe travels back, and come back soon. And thanks for the update too. And let me see. Also, he says he didn't get a chance to try the pierogies, but I did try the sandwich you were talking about. The coleslaw threw me off, but was good otherwise. Understand? Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not for everyone, and it's it's just one of those quirky things. Like even like Beth doesn't like them; she won't eat them. But it's always a fun thing. It's probably one of those things too. If you haven't grown up around it, it's just kind of weird and not cool. Maybe I don't know, but I'm glad you enjoyed the sandwich otherwise there, and thanks for trying it out. And let me see. So Raphael says his spot was someone on the road with a blue BMX, despite us getting 9 inches of snow. Wow, that's dedication. And Luke says it was -4 degrees this morning in Illinois. I went out for a nice mile walk. That's impressive. He says my house has potential foundation issues. I'll be moving by May after all these remodels. Wow, that's crazy. Man, I'm so sorry to hear that, Luke. That's got to be devastating, depending on how long you've been there. But either way, yeah, with all the remodels. And I'm sure you've done all your due diligence. So I won't ask a million follow-up questions, but hopefully, all the other options were exhausted, because that's tough to have to move. Moving is such a pain. So best of luck with that, and hope you find a better place. And that's crazy, but I hope you enjoyed the walk at least. Yeah, it was pretty cold here too. I think wind chill overnight was into the negatives. And I think this morning when we were out there, it was like maybe 10 or 11 degrees before the wind chill. So it was pretty cold, but still nice, and glad you enjoyed it too. And Mr. 705 says, I'm really enjoying the new videos coming out. I'm not always interested in reviews these days, so it's nice to watch the rants and news and your take on things. I hope the views are coming in on them. Yeah, I kind of really leaned into that this week, and I'm glad that so many of you enjoyed them. And yeah, it's something I'm still gonna have to figure out. I kind of got lucky with all the topics this week that were very easy and natural for me to. Sorry, I'm getting stuffed up for some reason. I don't know why. But they were very easy things to discuss and feel passionate about, personally for me at least. But it just, like anything with weekly updates, I'm at the mercy of the topics that come out. So I think the focus for me is, in the past, there's been a lot of those kind of video opportunities that I haven't had the time to do because I've either been too committed to, too many press cars or too many, trips or whatever the case was. And I just wasn't able to do them at home or just whatever. And so I think, I've been saying no to more and more stuff, and I'm going to continue to do that, this coming year, even though it's very glamorous and it's very hard to say no to free trips in very nice hotels, driving cars before anyone else does. It just doesn't pay off compared to the press cars that I can get, and review a couple months later. So, I think if I'm home and I'm able to, just be here in my office doing stuff with press cars or just doing these topical videos, I'm able to react and do that stuff a lot quicker and churn out these videos, on a daily basis, I think, which is what YouTube really wants. I mean, if you look at any of the successful, especially in the car niche, any of the successful channels, they're daily uploaders pretty much. And I've just never been able to get there because I'm a one-man crew. Everyone else that does it, they got, an editor, a videographer, or both, and they have the ability to, just churn stuff out really quickly because all they got to do is show up, talk, drive, and then they don't have to worry about it after that, versus me. There's a whole second day involved of, editing it. So, but yeah, I think, and that's why you even saw this past week, and you're going to see it again this next week. I only did one car review, and it wasn't even a full review. It was just the My Week With thing I did this week. And I used to be so like adamant about, I got to stick to my schedule and I have to, I have to get car reviews out and all this stuff. And just being able to walk away from it and just being like, you know what, I don't actually need to, like, as much as I know all of you guys support the channel and everything, like, you're not losing your mind if I don't stick to the schedule or if I don't put out a bunch of reviews. Like, I mean, even there was a few comments, which I was happy to see, people just being like, it's just fun to hear your thoughts on stuff. It doesn't have to be, whatever, new car or whatever. And so it's just, again, trying to continue to find the right formula for the channel. And I'm glad that it's worked out. The views for some of them are really good. Like, the video on the Honda motor issue, like that, which, I mean, that one I knew was going to kind of have some good potential, but like that one's, doing super well, it's like 25,000 views. And then some of the, especially the EV Subaru ones that I talked about this week, those are only a couple thousand views, but, most people just don't care about EVs, especially from Subaru. At least, my crowd doesn't, too much. So I think, there's, again, it's just coming out of topics, but it has to be a topic that, again, you guys will find somewhat interesting, or I think you would, and stuff that I can, get fired up enough to bother doing a video on, and then making sure I got that free time cleared out. So I'm going to try my hardest, but I think that this is probably the best way forward because it does kind of give you guys, the weekly update vibes in a way. And it's easier for me than going out, especially in the wintertime, going out and filming a car review when it's 10 degrees outside or whatever. I'd much rather be, holed up here in my office and ranting and raving about, whatever the news of the day is. So I'm happy to do that. And again, if it's, I can turn those videos around in an hour or two tops versus, again, the car reviews, which are, a day and a half, kind of production. I'm definitely thinking I'm going to do more of the news stuff. I won't go completely to that. I think, the thing that I've observed in the past week is that the car reviews still have more evergreen potential. These topical videos, it's kind of like vlogs. They get their views and then they kind of drop off pretty quickly. And so I can't rely on those for everything. And I think the car reviews are still going to be a very important component for sure, but, not stressing so much about doing as many car reviews, just doing the right stuff, doing it when I can, not trying to beat an embargo all the time, not trying to beat, all the competition, just put it out when I can get around to it. Otherwise focus on the actual urgent, car news stuff and things like that. And we'll see. I am feeling more optimistic here in the past week than I have for this channel in a long time. So I hope, again, it really just comes down to the views. I've had a lot of times where I've been excited about other new things I've tried on the channel, and then, they haven't really gone anywhere. So, as long as the views keep coming in for that stuff, then that's absolutely could be the lifeline to, keep us going here for 2026 on the channel. So fingers crossed. But anyway, sorry for the tangent. I'm very glad you're enjoying them though, Mr. 705. And thanks so much for your feedback too. That's very valuable that you're enjoying them. And Lantern Tales, thanks for stopping by. And Lancelot says, we got a foot of snow on Thursday night after it rained a couple of hours. Wow. So I guess you probably had some ice under there then too. Hopefully it wasn't too bad. And Pete says, loving my new Passport Trail Sport Elite. Not much snow in Central Texas. Was 78 degrees here yesterday. That's crazy. Well, hope you're enjoying the Passport. Congrats on that. And yeah, enjoy the nice warm weather too. And also apologies, I missed the other two things that came in here. So thanks so much, Dom, for being a member for 38 months now. He says, hey, Matt, unbelievable. It's been over 3 years being a member. Happy to see you still going. Thanks so much for your support. That's part of what helps to keep me going. So thank you so much for that. And thanks for stopping by too. And also, Nico, I guess you must have changed. I'm guessing this is the same YH as before, but maybe new username now with the way YouTube keeps changing that stuff up. But anyway, thank you for the super chat. And he's still a Mustang fan, clearly here. All right, I figured it out. So thanks for confirming, Nico. Let me see here. Jack says, will the new Golf R have the 5-cylinder from the RS3? Would be cool. It would be awesome. I remember when that rumor was going around a couple of months ago, and to me, it just seems completely unrealistic. I would love for it to happen. I really would, but that motor is the crown jewel of Audi, in my opinion, at least Audi RS. It's really unique. It's really special. And I don't see the marketability for Volkswagen, because a cheaper RS3 sounds like a good idea, but RS3 is still not that much more expensive than a Golf R. Because what is a Golf R maxes out around 50 or so now, right? And I think RS3 is now like low to mid 60s. So I guess you have a little bit of a spread there. If you went to like 57.5 or something for Golf R, you could kind of make a case for it. I can't imagine Audi letting Volkswagen have that motor. And I don't know if Volkswagen needs it necessarily. I think Golf R fans, they love the modability of the 4-cylinder. And the RS3's been around for a while. Anyone who wants a 5-cylinder in the Golf chassis can already go buy an RS3, either the new one or the used ones. Yes, we don't get the hatch here in the States, so I guess there's kind of a niche there that could be satisfied. I just, if you have 50 grand and you really want a 5-cylinder, I would just suggest you go buy the last, or the pre-refresh RS3, because those are in that range. It's still a completely fine car, and you can get one with, decent miles and stuff. It seems to be a pretty reliable motor too, from everything I've seen, at least, at first glance. So, I think it's one of the pride kind of things. Like, I don't envision Audi letting that motor go. I could be wrong. I'd love to see it, but to me, it just doesn't. It sounds like a really good thing to sell newspapers, magazines, clickbait kind of stuff. But I can't. I don't buy it. I'll believe it when I see it. But let me see. Lantern Tail says, had a guy cut 2 lanes to exit and almost to hit an exit and almost hitting me as I was also going to exit. Crazy. Well, glad you're all right there. And you always got to watch out for the crazy holiday drivers that are always frantic. Especially yesterday before the snow hit. Man, people were really driving crazy. Everyone's just in a panic. And, oh, my gosh, we're going to get snow. This doesn't happen every year. It does, but people act like it doesn't. It's just like people are so funny. Anyway, Raphael says, be careful what you ask for. Barely getting the door open for all the snow is not fun. Yeah, I'm sure, there's a limit where it'd get old. And if, it was your daily thing, maybe it would be annoying. I don't know. I've always loved snow. Maybe I'm just, privileged in the fact that I get, the right amount of snow. That's not too much or too little or something. I don't know. But I've always thought it'd be fun to like live up in like Vermont, like this time of year, and just be constantly, sliding around in an all-wheel drive GR Corolla or something, in the snow, and just pretending to be a rally driver all the time, whenever it was safe, of course. But I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure that's just my romanticized version of what it's like to live in a place that constantly has snow. But it sounds fun to me, at least. It's just that Super Dorks fan roots coming out. Dom says he's in Colorado and it's only snowed once. Really? Wow, that's surprising. That's pretty crazy. I guess everything's just strangely missing you guys somehow. It's nuts. And Lantern Tail says, also, I see people not driving with their lights on in pitch black conditions, even though in the wintertime the sun goes down earlier in the day. Yeah, that's definitely not a good idea. And I think, we talked about a few weeks ago, the problem with daytime running lights combined with gauges and dashboards that are always lit up, versus back in the day when you didn't have your lights on, nothing was lit up on the inside. I think now a lot of the stuff just comes on automatically, and you have these screens blasting in your face that if you're on a well-lit road, you might not immediately know that you don't have your lights on, So, but yeah, it is something. It's still a problem, even with all the automatic headlights that come standard on cars these days. You still see it, and it's kind of crazy. And Theodore says, good for you, brother, that the year is getting better. You deserve the best, Matt. I appreciate that. And yeah, hope the end of the year here has a nice ending for some of you guys as well. M. Pike says, hey, Matt, I live in southwestern Florida, debating between a Civic Si, WRX, or EcoBoost Mustang, all manual. What's the one you would choose to daily? So I guess, assuming everything is even, so you don't care about practicality differences, you don't care about price differences, fuel economy differences. No, there's a lot of things that if you have any opinion whatsoever about any of those things could sway me to suggest one over the other. But if again, assuming everything is equal, even, and it's just which one would I personally rather daily? See, if I were making this video a couple of weeks, or if I was, giving this response a couple of weeks ago, before I made the video on all the Honda 1.5T issues, I would have easily said Civic Si. Now, knowing what I know about the 1.5T motor, I can't really recommend it as much anymore. Now, the Si seems to have less issues because people run premium. You're supposed to run premium in the Si compared to the other stuff that has the 1.5T where it doesn't require premium. And that kind of, I think, is part of what leads to some of the failures in those motors, because I think they really just do want premium in them. And, they can't tell a CRV buyer you have to put premium in because it would just kill sales. So they just deal with it, on the back end instead, or don't, since again, Honda's not doing anything about it. But regardless, you can go watch that video if you want to hear my whole thoughts on that whole thing. But, so I would have said Si. And if we're limited to those three, because the one that I would actually buy, if I was between something in that segment, I would just go buy an Elantra N. But if you must stick to those three, especially in Florida, the WRX is a waste in Florida because you're not really using the all-wheel drive. You're not really even using the good handling, honestly. There's hardly any good roads. So I think for you, I would actually recommend EcoBoost Mustang as the best choice. And so I'm guessing with that, you're buying used, because obviously you can't buy those with a manual new anymore. So if you're buying used EcoBoost manual, I think is a good time. I think you'd enjoy it. More power than both of those, good modability. And if you go for an 18 or later, you're going to get the better engine, which has the port and direct injection, so you won't have the gunked up, intake valves and stuff. So, yeah, I'd say probably EcoBoost Mustang, assuming, again, you don't care about a back seat, practicality, all that kind of stuff. EcoBoost Mustang is the way I would go. And if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to ask. I also do one-on-one car advice calls, if you're unaware, on my website at mattmaranmotoring.com, where you can do a one-on-one Skype call and or just Google Meet kind of call, and can talk more through this, if you do want to dig in a little bit more. But that's my answer as far as the info I have in the context available to me at the moment here, but hopefully helps you a little bit. And Two says, sorry, I've been gone for a while, been practicing BJJ, planning on competing this year. Might put Matt Maran motoring on my GI. So I don't know what any of that means. I'm sorry, I don't know the abbreviations. But congrats on getting into something new there. And any free publicity, I'm always up for. So thank you for the offer there, and hope you're enjoying yourself too. And thanks again for stopping by. And Darnell says, good evening, Matt. Chat. Hope everyone is getting their holiday shopping finished. Yeah, hope everyone is able to get all that handled too. I still have a couple little things I got to grab myself. All the main stuff has been taken care of, thankfully. Got to get those deals, on Black Friday. And even some of the stuff was even better before Black Friday this year, which is kind of interesting. But let me see. Danny says, correction on the Monte Carlo SS. He saw it was almost mint. The rear quarter panels were rotting away, and they're still driving it. Gotcha. So not quite mint then. It's got a lot of rust. But so I guess that explains why they're out driving around in the wintertime. And Luke says, my guy that does all my construction work on my current place is walking all the new potential places with me. That's great. Well, it sounds like you got a great contractor there helping you out, and that's awesome. And let me see. Pete also says he saw a white El Camino in Austin yesterday. No rear window and some rust here and there, but sounded great. Guy and his dog driving around enjoying the beautiful weather. That's awesome. That's so cool. And let me see. Raphael says, what's a regular day like for you and Beth and the child? The Beth that doesn't like us enough to drop in. Well, she's got her own thing she has to take care of for sure, but she'll stop by again soon for sure. Maybe we'll do a special kind of holiday thing or something here for one of the last ones of the year. But a regular day, I mean, it's probably just like anybody else's, I'd say, who, especially people who work from home, so our daughter goes to preschool and has other activities she does. She does gymnastics and other stuff. So I mean, she's usually busy, on the weekdays a little bit there. So that's Beth's busy driving her around and doing all that stuff, and keeping her entertained whenever she's not at her activities. But for me, it's just going downstairs. For me, it's always me and my daughter go down, and we kind of Beth sleeps a little bit, while sleeps in, I guess, a little bit more than I do, and goes. So me and my daughter go downstairs and, just kind of make breakfast. I make my coffee. We kind of just like hang for, a little bit there. And then usually by 8 a.m. or sooner, I come up here and start working. And, I always do break for lunch because I love, while she's still young and she's still here to have lunch, with, I always, take a break, at lunchtime to go down and, usually she's just watching, a TV show or something, but, just sitting next to her on the floor, watching TV while we eat our lunch, hanging out a little bit there. And then, go back up to work and, again, whether it's a car review day, I'm out filming, or going to a junkyard, could be a separate thing, but otherwise it's just, being at the computer all day. And then break for dinner time, bedtime, do all that, stuff. And then once our daughter's in bed, then I come back in here and just spend usually another several hours, usually try to be done around midnight. The past couple of nights, it's been more like 1 a.m. Just continuing to work because that's what this year has brought me to. I wish, I had a healthy work-life balance, but you asked, and that's the reality is, I'm usually pulling a 12 or 13 hour day whenever you subtract out, again, the lunchtime, the breakfast time, the dinner time, and bedtime stuff. It ends up being 12 or 13 hours of work here usually. So that's what my usual days are like. Thankfully, I've been able to, still keep weekends, pretty free. I still do work, obviously, like now, on the evening. So weekends, work in the evenings. And if it's not a crazy busy week, I at least try to spend Saturday night like hanging out with Beth, just watching shows and movies, catching up on SNL or South Park or whatever, which is hard to do since it's basically like one evening a week that usually I'll try to carve out some time to not work. But really just right now, the channel is just, not earning enough money to be able to just what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of rest at all. it's just saying, okay, well, I am still awake enough, I could start another article because I'm doing those Car Buzz articles still. And the more of those I can churn out, I have an unlimited amount I can do. The more of those I churn out, the more money I can make, and the better situation I can, put me and my family in. So it's really like time is money, and if I've got free time, I need to be using that to make money. So that's kind of what a day has been like for me this year. Hopefully I can get back to having evenings off in the future and, get back to a healthier balance. But right now it's just burning the candle at both ends pretty much. Let me see. Darnell says other advantage, Matt, is those short reaction views get you new people to tune in. People don't commit to a car review unless they're really shopping. Absolutely. And I think that's what's really great about those is expanding out and also kind of recapturing some of the weekly update crowd. Because I know there's a lot of people that either unsubscribe or just, quietly unsubscribe, not really unsubscribe, but just quit watching because they're like the only reason I was watching because of the weekly updates. And I understand that a lot of people are not interested in seeing, car reviews anymore, or they just don't have the time for it or whatever. So I'm hoping that, some of those people come back as a result of this as well. But I think hopefully it will allow me to kind of expand out a little bit. And if nothing else, just put more videos out there and more opportunities to get in front of more people, with, daily uploads are close to that. So, it's another reason I'm definitely excited about those and hoping I can keep those going. Nico says EV equals microwave food. I mean, there's some pretty good microwave food too, though. Me and you don't agree on EVs, but microwave food is gotten a lot better though the past few years. Even I did that one sponsorship. Unfortunately, I'm not sponsored anymore, but with Factor, if you want a quick little meal, I mean, it's like a really good steak for out of a microwave, or a pork chop or whatever they have. Yeah, they have some pretty good stuff. So, obviously not ideal, but microwave food's come a long way. Danny says, here's a weird Subaru that was never offered in the US, the 2010 Subaru Impreza XV, basically a precursor to the Crosstrek. Interesting. Yeah, around that time, we were still doing the whole, Impreza Outback Sport, I think, was still around at that point. And that's been the kind of precursor to the Crosstrek ever since, the mid-90s, pretty much. That was my first car, was a 97 Outback Sport. And great cars. Let me see. Bobby says, just bought a 26 RS3. I deliver pizzas for a living. What are the best tires to run for tread life? That's awesome that you bought an RS3 and you're delivering pizzas in. I love that. That is amazing. As far as best tires for tread life, I would have to look at what is available for your tire setup, because especially with the unique tires the RS3 has with the skinnier ones in the back, I'm not sure for the tire that wide what your best option would be. I mean, obviously, if you are okay with less grip, go for, a less aggressive tire. Like, you can go for a summer tire still if you want, but, don't go for like a max performance summer or something super sticky. You want to go for like a more grand touring kind of summer tire or an all season kind of grand touring. Basically, the best way to get the most tread life is to have the least amount of grip possible, which obviously there's a limit there from safety and all that other stuff. But that's the bottom line, is the harder the tire is, the longer it lasts, but the less grip you have. So, and this is, Tire Rack is a great resource. Again, not sponsored, but that's what I use to shop for tires myself, is going on there and seeing, what the tread life's rated for, what kind of, mileage people are getting out of them. Obviously everyone's driving is different, but, that's kind of the best way to kind of figure out what's going to be the right fit. Cause obviously you can then say, here's my car, you plug in your car, it tells you, here's all your options available. And you can just, pick kind of from those options, what's going to give you the best. But typically that's the advice is, the least grip possible. It's going to be your best bet there. And in RS3's case, that'll probably amplify the fun, honestly. It's kind of like the BRZ thing. People love putting sticky tires on BRZs, and I think that completely ruins it, in my opinion. You want to have the crappy tires because you want to have it be tail happy and fun and just, a big laugh. I mean, I guess if you're trying to, be it an autocross time or something, go ahead and throw sticky tires on. But like that's why I've always said with the BRZ, buy the base version. It comes with a crappy, Michelin Primacy all season tires because that's the most fun BRZ in '86 in my opinion. So you put some like because that's basically the tire that's on the Prius. So you want to get Michelin Primacies. I mean that's a little pricier tire, so I'm sure there's a even cheaper alternative that's probably even less grippy, but something like that is probably going to be the best bet. And then again, you have more tail happiness and a bunch of fun. Just don't expect the same kind of handling limits that you have with the OEM tires on there. And let me see. Also, Justin, thanks so much for rejoining again and becoming a member again after being a member for 40 months now total. Thank you so much, Justin, for that. I really appreciate it. Or maybe you're not rejoining. It's just that it's you're using your little appreciation thing here for the month. So thank you so much for 40 months of support. I really appreciate it. And yeah, thank all of you that are members. That really does help to, again, give some stability here, to the very roller coaster like earnings that YouTube can sometimes have here. So thank you all so much for the support. Yeah, it means more now than ever. And let me see here. So Theodore says the old car reviews about the Lamborghini were awesome. Yeah, that was one of the earliest ones. And that was so funny that, man, that was in the very early days of doing car reviews. What he's referring to, he watched the review I did on the Lamborghini Gallardo Superleggera. It was, I think, a 2010 maybe. And yeah, it was a different time, and it was just funny how, like, so I was in Columbus, Ohio for that, and I had a buddy in Columbus at the time, who I think I had come out initially to review. We had a few cars lined up. I think there was the E92 M3 that I did and that same day. And there was, I think the E90 M3, and we had a few cars lined up that he helped me line up, a few of his buddies and stuff. I reviewed a bunch of these cars, and these were quick reviews. This was not when I was super well researched or highly experienced with car reviews or driving different cars at all in general, aside from, working at the dealerships and stuff. But it was just like, okay, I'd go for a little quick blast in a car. And that was the end of it. And then he was like, oh, yeah. And my one other buddy, he'd be fine letting you drive his car, too. He's got a Lamborghini Gallardo Superleggera. I'm like, oh, man, I was not expecting to drive a Superleggera today, but okay. And, showed up. And I mean, again, it wasn't ideal. We were in a busy, regular parking lot. And I'm trying to film stand up with all these cars driving around in the middle of a busy, Saturday afternoon or whatever it was. Just so haphazardly doing these reviews back then. And then half the review, I was just stuck in rush hour kind of traffic or something. So didn't have any good roads. I'm glad you enjoyed the video, but now these days I would consider that to be a not great review, or, just could have been so much better if I would have been on good roads and had actually set that up and planned that properly. But whenever someone just drops a Lamborghini into your lap, completely unprepared, I was like, okay, well, I'm not gonna say no to this, but it just was not very prepared for that. So that was a fun one though. And yeah, if you want to see me be pretty nervous reviewing a Lamborghini for the first time, I had driven Lamborghinis before because I had a few friends that had Lamborghinis, so it wasn't my first time in the Gallardo, but first time reviewing one on camera. And it's, again, the early days of me being like, holy crap, this is crazy, and all that. It was a fun one. So I'm glad you enjoyed it, Theodore. Let me see. Also, OKS Bassist, also known as I'm not paying 42 grand for a Prelude. Thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate the generosity. Happy to see I think some familiar faces there, as well as some new ones able to get those memberships. So thank you so much for the generosity and the support. And let me see here. So Danny says, by the way, someone got 1.1 million miles out of a Crosstrek, a 2014 with a 5-speed. They are a medical courier, so 1,100 miles a day. A day. Wow, that's really hard to do. And I hadn't heard that one. I'm gonna have to look that one up. That's awesome. Thanks for bringing that to my attention. I love those high mileage stories, but man, even in an 18-wheeler, 1,100 miles a day. I mean, Luke can weigh in. He does do that. 1,100 miles is a lot of driving. I can't remember the most miles I've ever done in a day. but I feel like it's probably only been, maybe 600 miles or something like that. So that's like double. That's crazy. I can't imagine. And then doing that every day of your life, I mean, that cannot be good for your body. To be cooped up in a car for 1,100 miles a day, that is wild. 1.1 million miles on a 2014. That is, I would love to sit down and like do an interview with someone like that. I have so many questions, and so the medical courier life seems so fascinating to me because it seems like something I would kind of love because I do love driving, but I feel like you would just hate driving after driving that much every single day. Even if you're in the most favorite car, like even if I was doing it in a GR Corolla every day and I was just happy as a clam, like I still I don't know how people do it. It's very impressive. I need to like do a docu series on medical couriers and just dig into what all is entailed with that and how they hold up to that much mileage every day because it's really impressive. There's another person in the Pittsburgh area here who was doing it actually with a GR Corolla until I think he had it, a deer ran into him or something and totaled it. He put like 350,000 miles on like a 2021 Camry or RAV4 hybrid. Now he's doing courier stuff in a Civic Type R, current gen, and he's got also I think a Toyota Land Cruiser. And I can't remember the name of his username. He's on Reddit and he posts every once in a while like an update. And I messaged him a couple of times. But yeah, I wish I knew. If you look up like 350,000 mile RAV4 hybrid or something, it might come up on Google. I don't know, but since he's in Pittsburgh, if he ever stops driving, if there's ever a day or he is off, I need to I guess they have to stop at least to get an oil change every week or whatever it is. But I need to pull him aside and I'm like, can I please interview you? Because I feel like it'd be fascinating. Everyone always talks about medical couriers when they're talking about high mileage cars, but I feel like no one's ever actually done a good video on one or what that's like. And I would like to tell that story. That would be fun. Anyway, Lancelot, thank you so much for a very generous super chat. I really appreciate that. He says, the great Matt. So it's supposed to be great. Stupid autocorrect. Gotcha. Well, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it, Lancelot. Everyone's getting their drinks out here as I mentioned the car. So yeah. And I think also speaking of drinks, I'm thinking for the next couple of live streams here, so next I will be doing one this Wednesday and I will do one, next Sunday as well. And then that next Wednesday is Christmas Eve, so I won't be doing one then. The following Wednesday will be New Year's Eve, obviously, so I'm not going to do one then either. So it's going to be just this one tonight, this coming Wednesday, and then Sunday, and then we'll be done for the year. And I think for those last two Sundays, since they're going to be kind of over holiday weeks, I think I'm going to break out the whiskey and we'll have a little bit more fun, maybe with some drinking here for the Christmas party live stream next Sunday, maybe. And for the New Year's party live stream here the following week. So maybe we'll get a little more loose-lipped here with those ones the next 2 weeks here. And let me see, where are we here? So Nico says, you drive a $99,000 car delivering Domino's. Maybe, are they really 100 grand in Canada? That's crazy. Here in the States, RS3s are thankfully only like 65, but and Bobby says his was 88 grand. And he said, who says Domino's? Yeah, I mean, there's some nice pizzas for sure that maybe you get some better pay and some nicer tips and stuff like that. But I mean, yeah, I think it's awesome. There's a few other people here. I know in the past I had brought up the idea of me possibly door dashing and stuff on the side for fun in the Fiat, again, to make some extra money. But unfortunately, I read the lease agreements, and if you haven't heard about this, with leases, oftentimes they will forbid you from doing any kind of food delivery, Ubering, anything like that. Your courier stuff, you're not allowed to do any of that stuff in a leased car typically. And I looked at the Fiat contract, and sure enough, it's can't do any of that stuff. So that squashes my idea of possibly delivering. But yeah, there's a few other people here who mentioned in the chat in the past few weeks how they're like, yeah, it's a fun way to make some extra money if you enjoy driving and just delivering food. At least you don't have to deal with people as much, really, and Yeah, I think it's a fun gig if you enjoy driving. Um, and Danny says the last year you could get a Crosstrek with the manual was 2023 when the Crosstrek was offered with a 6-speed, and they started in 2018 with that. Yeah, and like Engineering Explained had his manual Crosstrek that he loved, and really, I think just the manual was great for him, even though it was slow. He loved that thing. And Nico says he changed his picture, and that's why I changed his whole username. Interesting. Crazy. Well, Lantern Tail says these reaction videos also get people talking and starting conversations in the comments. Yeah, the engagement is really great, and I think that is also a nice driver for the videos. The Subaru, at least the ones on the EVs, didn't get a ton of engagement, but yeah, certainly the one when I was talking about the STI did, and that Honda one, man, that thing still is just generating so many comments, and it's completely understandable because especially if it's something that wasn't on your radar and you're like, oh crap, now I got to worry about my car, which I don't wish on anyone, but I feel like it's better to be informed about this stuff because it is a very real, pretty common thing. But I mean that, like, the comments are just still just popping off on that. And I'm trying to weigh in and respond to comments, which whenever it gets to that level where it's so many, it gets kind of hard to keep up sometimes, but really trying to keep up with that one has been a challenge a little bit, just because I want to make sure that people that have questions like, what do I do, how do I not have my car blow up and stuff, I want to make sure that I'm answering those. So but yeah, I'm glad that the engagement is really good, and hopefully that continues for those topical videos for sure, with people having their thoughts, like the K car one, lots of comments on that, and I think that helped that video a little bit too. And let me see, Nico says it's my government name. YouTube got me. Nice. So your real name's Nico, you're exposed. And he says he's fiending for some Domino's as well. Yeah, Domino's is good stuff. I mean, that's what we buy usually these days, even though we do have some really good local pizzerias, but they're expensive. Domino's is cheap, and these days that's what fits the bill. And Lantern Tail says it's 51 degrees in Seattle and no snow yet. Well, I'm glad you guys have been spared so far, and it's awesome that you're in Seattle, because I've always loved Seattle. I've only been there I think twice, but it's one of those places I wish car companies would do more programs at, because I've always thought Seattle was really cool. And Nicholas says, hey, Matt, glad those news videos are doing good for you. Really respect your work ethic. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much. And thanks so much for watching those. And hopefully, I'm glad you guys are enjoying them, because I was a little worried that, posting so much was going to kind of annoy some people. And I'm sure it maybe has for a few, but I'm really glad that, the views are at least, sustaining a few thousand views, no matter what. And that, that it's not turning off too many people. So hopefully, they keep being good videos and good ways to keep the channel going here. And thanks for weighing in and giving me your feedback too, Nicholas. And Super Steve says, hey, Matt, does the new Integra have a limited slip diff or something that simulates it? It has a limited slip diff. So Integra is basically Civic Si underneath, and also adding in the adaptive dampers on top of that. But yes, it has the LSD, same transmission, same drive line as Civic Si. And that's one of the really nice things about Integra for sure. Okay, so Bobby says Golf R is 55 in Canada and RS3 is 85. Wow, that's a big spread. Okay, well, in that case, I can see Canadians getting the 5-cylinder Golf R, because you certainly got more to play with there from a price standpoint. Wow, I didn't know it was that much of a difference. I wonder if that's just Audi just thinking they can get big money or what, but that's nuts. Crazy. So yeah, I mean, because here in the States it's not that big of a gap, but I mean, I'd love to see it for Canada. That would be a fun snub to the US for Canada being cool with the EU and not trying to make things difficult on everyone. Be hopefully make me and you guys get some cooler stuff maybe here. We'll see what happens. But so Super Steve says he meant the Prelude as far as for your question, not the Integra. Prelude, yeah, it's just the regular hybrid powertrain, so no limited slip diff. You have traction control that intervenes. And I'm not exactly sure how exactly it distributes the power between the two wheels in the hybrid system. Um, because yeah, I don't think it's a limited slip diff. I think it's probably just intelligently varying power. Because since it's again electric motors that are just being powered by a gas generator essentially, you have the ability there to kind of distribute that more intelligently than a regular non-limited slip front wheel drive setup. So, but honestly, I've never even driven any of the Honda hybrids in snow to truly say, especially the front wheel drive ones. Um, so I'm not sure. I was trying to get a Civic hybrid hatch as a press car because it's in the fleet. But then Honda said no because I had a regular Civic hybrid sedan like a year ago. And they're like, it's the same thing. And I'm like, well, one, I didn't have the hatch. And two, like, I want to try it again because that one got really good views last year. And I have come to the realization this year that people will watch the same thing I did last year, just the new model year, even if nothing's new. The Elantra N was a great example of that this year. I did, refresh the Elantra N came out last year. This year, very minor little changes, but it's just like, hey, I'm having fun in Elantra N. It's still great. The end. And it's still got good views. So I'm doing more of that. Actually, right now I have a Jetta GLI. And I did a review of one almost exactly a year ago, and 2025 was the refresh. 2026 gets one big change, which I won't spoil the video. There's one big change that I thought was worth, shedding some light on and giving some publicity to, but it's otherwise completely the same. But last year's GLI video did pretty good views, and so I'm like, all right, especially the fun cars, like I'm happy to go for another spin in it if people are going to watch it. So instead, I was always just like, oh, I've already covered that. I want to do something new. But instead, I'm like, let's just go back to the hits that work. It's kind of like your favorite artist. It's like, instead of trying to do something different, just churn out more of the same. And if people enjoy it, don't fight what works. So yes, hopefully that answers your question. I'm just not an expert on those from a how they divvy out the power there. So maybe someone else can weigh in a little bit more that knows more. But yeah. Hopefully it helps you a little bit there, Steve. And Nico says, look at weather maps of America. Anything east of Mississippi River is frozen. And that's right. We know more about your geography than the average American. Probably that's correct. Absolutely. Danny says, what about a Golf R with a turbo 07K engine from the factory? I know the 07K is old, but just modernizing it, then BAM factory inline 5 Golf R. Yeah, well, that's hard because I don't know the engine codes, but if the 07K is the like half of the Lamborghini V10 that was in the regular Jettas and stuff that was naturally aspirated. And thank you all for the hearts and the support there. I appreciate that. But if it's that motor you're talking about, then I think, yeah, that's been out of production for a long time, getting suppliers, ramped up for that again, making it emissions compliant and then putting a turbo on it. It would honestly be easier just to not, to just not do it. Because again, we're talking about a car that's not going to sell very many. And it's, yeah. I think, especially every time I criticize Golf R, there's a million people come out of the woodwork and say, oh, Golf R is amazing. What are you talking about? I think they get all defensive. So I truly think the Golf R fans are happy with Golf R the way it is. And I really don't think Volkswagen needs to mess with it. I think it's kind of one of those cars like many other vehicles, like, Dodge Charger, things like that, where if you change it too much, people are going to get mad anyway and say, oh, it's not true to the spirit, blah, 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 whatever. So just turn out more of the same thing as the review videos. Don't hate what works. If it works and it's the same old thing, keep on doing it, and I think, obviously people would welcome a Golf R that's 5-cylinder, but, yeah, I think that they've got their bases covered personally, but I could be completely wrong. Maybe it's something to come out soon. And, if it does, I'll be very happy to see it for sure. Let me see. Darnell, thank you so much for a super chat. He says contribution to Santa Hat and Whiskey Fund. Well, thank you, Darnell. And yeah, I'll have to see if I can find a Santa hat around here to maybe wear next week. That'd be fun because I don't have one. My daughter has a pink one that's got Paw Patrol, I think, on it. But I guess that would be fun for a laugh if I put that on. But I don't think I actually have a real Santa hat laying around anywhere. I'll do my best. But thank you so much for the contribution and for the generosity. And let me see here. So where are we here? So Nico also says, why do Americans who don't live in Texas, Florida, or California, I would even go Arizona and Georgia. You guys are spoiled. If you're talking about with the weather, maybe. Yeah, there's certainly some places where it's just all nice all the time, which, I mean, it comes down to your personal preferences again, because for me, it'd be really monotonous. And even like my uncle who grew up in Pittsburgh and, loves it a lot, had to, move out west. And, he said in the past, he's like, yeah, it's nice that it's always warm, but he's like, I really miss having the season changes because otherwise it just feels like Groundhog Day every day for him. Again, everyone's different, but I feel like I would probably kind of land in that same kind of spectrum, especially after having so many years of seasons. I know it gets miserable in January and February, but like, and I've always just loved snow. That to me, it doesn't bother me. But certainly can understand all the people that love all the sunny weather all the time too. And Lantern Tail says, you could also talk about car prices and the insane auto loan debt as a topic idea that is very relevant as it screws all buyers who are in the market. Absolutely. And that's a good suggestion. I think there's going to be a lot to talk about with, as I've said on these live streams many times before about, auto delinquencies are way up. And every month when that goes higher and there's a new report out about that could certainly be a good topic. And I do have an economist kind of background because I did go to college for economic management. So that's something that I could weigh in on for sure, and kind of be a tiny bit more credible than an average person without a financial background. But yeah, just talking about the domino effects too, which I think people don't consider, the domino effects of what all goes down if you have, the car market collapse and you have people just walk away from car loans. And, it's a whole thing. And I mean, that also does, wade into political stuff slightly. It does weigh in, lead into a bunch of other stuff just from an economic standpoint and, more high level kind of stuff, because there's a lot of factors contributing to all this right now, but absolutely car prices for sure can be something to continue to talk about. I'm also going to have to be a little picky about my topics. I mean, obviously if I want to rile people up, I can just, say whatever and it's not a big deal. But like, I think that, I did lose some of my weekly update viewers in the beginning of this year with all the tariff talk, which was important. And I don't regret that because it was important to keep everyone informed and give the real info on what was going on with that stuff in those early days, especially. But, I know a lot of people are just like, I don't want to hear this. And, so, it's just, that's another reality I have to deal with, is talking about stuff that is relevant to car people. And, there's a lot of car people. I mean, everyone's got different backgrounds and opinions, but typically there's a lot that are still very much, thinking that tariffs are great and thinking that all this stuff's going to magically work out someday, somehow. And they're still clinging on to the hopes and dreams, regardless of the evidence. But, so there, like all this stuff, I'm going to kind of experiment and find my way, figure out, what topics are right. And obviously there's going to be a few duds here and there, I'm sure, and just stuff that won't, be a great topic. But I'm just going to try my best. I think also there's a few other sources that I pull from. I don't want to give away my potential secret sauce here of how I'm going to come up with a lot of these topics, but there's other things that can give me a good barometer of what is relevant to enthusiasts and stuff to that I think is worth discussing if I see that it's popping off in other corners of the internet. It can be something that I'm like, okay, well, this is worth talking about. So I think I'm going to also kind of really do a better job of keeping my finger on the pulse of the enthusiast community in particular. And what are you guys upset about? What are you wanting to talk about? What stuff, is the stuff that gets you riled up, that makes you want to rant? And then lean into that stuff a little bit more. I think is going to be another one of the things I'm going to try and do a better job of having, an ear to the ground in a way. And hopefully it works out. But Lancelot, thank you so much for gifting 10 memberships. I really appreciate that. Thanks so much for the generosity, and happy to see a bunch of people able to get those memberships as well there. And looks like a lot of new faces as well. Although I'm sure with, again, the YouTube switch up with the usernames and stuff, there's probably some that are familiar faces that I just don't recognize usernames anymore for. But thank you all so much. And thank you, Lancelot, for the generosity. I'm sure everyone appreciates it too. And let me see. Where were we here? Paxton says, "Hi, Matt. I test drove a Model Y and full self-driving. I'm warming up to EVs. Have you changed your mind yet?" I love EVs. I've always loved them. But Model Y, I'm still just staying away from the Tesla stuff. For me, that's especially in the car world. I guess there's probably less people that are Elon haters, but for me, almost almost all of my colleagues are just not into Tesla anymore, and not interested in covering it, not interested in any of that. And it's the same with me. I'm not interested in promoting products that I don't think are well done. I still think that it's dangerous to only have cameras for full self-driving. Not using radar is just crazy to try and attempt that. And I think LiDAR is still very important to have as well. But and there's so many things. I was just, even the other day, I don't know, I saw some new report about, or not even a report, just people talking about, I guess there was another Tesla on full self-driving that just drove itself into a telephone pole and hurt some guy and his daughter in the back seat, who's still having headaches as a result of the impact, which was weeks ago or something. So I mean, I don't know. I don't trust full self-driving. There's been so many failures, and it doesn't have to be this way. Again, Waymo is doing super safe driving. Not perfect, but the Waymo crashes are they're pulling up to an airport curb and they bump a sign. That's the extent of the Waymo. I mean, obviously with enough miles, something is bound to happen eventually, but it's really, really safe with the Waymos. And that, I think, is again demonstrating how you do safe autonomous driving. And I don't think full self-driving, which is also just the very name, just pisses me off, because it's always been a misrepresentation. It's been deliberately misleading customers. And if you're a car person, yes, we all know it's not actually full self-driving, but the average person doesn't know that. I mean, whenever you take your mind and put it into the mind of a regular person that doesn't understand this stuff, Elon calls it full self-driving. They take that at face value and say, okay, this car will drive itself. I don't have to pay attention anymore. And it's just irresponsible and dangerous. And I mean, like Elon said, if Trump hadn't been elected, Elon would probably be in jail right now. And I fully believe that, because he has done so many illegal things. And it's just, it's another example of how the rich live by different rules than the rest of us. But anyway, I won't go on that tangent, but for that reason, I'm not going to help contribute a single penny to Elon. I don't supercharge. Even all these NACS vehicles that are starting to come out, thankfully, most of them always come with an NACS to CCS adapter. I don't even want to go to a supercharger. I know the whole perk of going NACS is, everyone can use superchargers. I don't even want to do that. I know for most people, again, it's a convenience thing, and it's whatever. Everyone has their lines in the sand they draw. But for me, I refuse to even use a supercharger, because I'm that adamant against contributing to Elon at all. So no Model Y reviews for me. But again, I have a friend who has one. He loves it. No judgment at all, but just for me, just not something I'm interested in giving a platform to with my little bit of influence that I may or may not have. But I love all the other EVs that are out there. We have our Lyric and 500e that are both fantastic. Although I will be doing a video this week talking about the complaints with the Lyric. It has not been perfect, and I'm always blunt and honest about my experiences. So get ready for another rant on the shortcomings of the Lyric here this week, but we still like it at the end of the day, even if it isn't perfect. But anyway, Raphael says the Elantra N is a winner every time I see one. It's just I'm just not into the look of it, but the car is great. Yeah, and I can understand that. Like I said, if I were to ever get one, I would immediately take the wing off the back. I'd black out all the red trim on the side skirts and stuff with just a black stripe instead. But it's just such a good car. It's so good. And Danny says, before we got the 01 RS6 from Audi, the last time the North American market got the RS6 was the 2002 to 2004 model. Absolutely wild. Yeah, and it was a sedan back then too. I remember those because we had some used come into the dealership I worked at when I worked at an Audi, Porsche, BMW dealer from 07 to 2011. I remember some of those coming in. They're cool cars for sure. And Lantern Tail says, I have also used full self-driving. It's a lot better. The car drives perfectly well, which is a very big improvement over the previous version. I'm glad it's working well for you. Just again, please stay vigilant because, that's the tricky thing with a lot of those systems too, is you let your guard down and then, that's when it kind of takes you by surprise. So just, make sure that, it doesn't catch you off guard because there's just been so many stories of, not only just that, but, even with the Blue Cruise and, I haven't actually heard really hardly anything about Super Cruise having any, bad accidents, but there's been some Blue Cruise accidents as well that have been, tragic. And, it's just, you got to make sure you're very vigilant with this stuff until it gets to a more reliable, version. But it's just the whole beta testing thing didn't sit well with me either. The fact that, they're trying this stuff out, in consumers' cars. It's one thing when Waymo's trying it out and it's in a limited capacity and you have a passenger or a driver in the car to monitor things and you're, using a zillion sensors and stuff. To me, and it's again in limited capacity, it's a completely different thing than just being like, hey, everyone, get a software update and have at it. Enjoy. I don't know. Again, everyone sees it differently, but to me, it just didn't sit well with me still. Nicholas says, Matt, have you seen Subaru's next-gen CB engines? They're in the JDM models only as 1.8 liters right now. Hope to see them come over here soon. Is that the e-Boxer maybe? Is that what you're discussing? Because I don't know of any other stuff that's been, some of the stuff in Japan kind of goes under the radar for me sometimes, but if that's what you're talking about, it seems like it just doesn't do a lot of power, which is fine for Japan, but here would be a problem. I think that's why, the hybrid system we see in Crosstrek and Forester now is a little punchier and it's, a separate system than the one that's in Japan. But I'm excited. Subaru has said, though, they're developing a next generation hybrid Boxer engine that I think will hopefully, nicely move the ball forward for them. And I'm happy though that they're also, very much still going into the EVs and doing that as well. Danny says that 02 to 04 4.2 liter bi-turbo V8 with a 7,000 RPM red line, in the RS6, and that engine roars with a proper exhaust. That was I don't even honestly know that much about those RS6s. It's all kind of left my head at this point. Because they did the regular naturally aspirated V8, but I guess the RS6 was the turbo version of that. I could have, for some reason, I thought those were twin turbo V6, the RS6 back then, but I guess not. Audi made some great motors. Some of them were really bad too, like the 2.7T, just complete garbage, it seems, at least in my opinion. But the V8s were pretty cool. And Luke says, this year was pretty bad for me as well. I'm hoping aside from moving, 26 is good to me and everyone else. Well, sorry to hear that, Luke, but I hope 26 is better for all of us. I think Yeah, I think for most people, it's safe to say it's probably, at least financially and otherwise was probably not the best year for everyone. Everyone was hoping, things would improve and all that, and instead the opposite has happened. So, yeah, I guess it sounds like if you're really wealthy, then those people have been making out pretty good. But other than that, the rest of us not so much. But I hope things work out good for you in 2026, Luke. And Nico says, I sign in at 9 a.m. and go back to sleep until 11ish, check emails, then it's time for lunch, then take a nap, and around 2 to 5, I finish my reports. Don't tell corporate. You are living the dream, sir. Don't ever take it for granted. Man, yeah, I would, my life would be transformed. My quality of life would go through the roof if that was my work schedule. But anyway, Danny says the 4.2-liter bi-turbo was the only engine option and the only transmission was a ZF 5-speed Tiptronic auto. Interesting. Yeah, they were still sticking with a 5-speed back then. And Raphael says he's an IT admin. Work-life balance is working my whole life. I'm sorry that that's your fate as well, but hopefully you can make some time for yourself too sometimes. But yeah, it's tough. I know. And I'm sure IT is probably especially frustrating. At least, that's the one thing I will say, is yes, I'm working a lot, but I'm still doing what I love. I'm my own boss for the most part. The car buzz stuff, I have a boss, but aside from that, that's the stuff I really kind of cling to. And part of the reason why I don't want to just walk away from this channel, among other reasons, I really do love that. I mean, I love what I do. I really do. I just wish that I could do it, during more normal business hours and that's it. It would be kind of nice. But, it's far better work. I know there's a lot of people that are slaving away at, 12, 13 hour a day or more jobs that are absolutely miserable. And that's got to be even worse by a long shot. So, it's one of those things. One of my favorite Humphrey Bogart quotes is, things are never so bad they can't be made worse. And I try to, keep that in mind, to always try and have a grateful mindset and always, just appreciate, whatever I'm in, even if it's hard, even if it's tough, and even if it's not ideal, things could be worse. And, that might be a kind of negative way to look at things too, to always be dwelling on the what ifs of negativity. But like, just that's kind of one thing that helps to keep me going, of like, this could be worse, and and continue with that, but Therafester says, hey Matt, I'm actually in your neck of the woods in Pittsburgh for my sister's graduation earlier today. As a SoCal driver, it was a new experience driving in the snow. We had a Tucson all drive and it did well. Well, welcome to Pittsburgh, and hope you had a nice time here, and congrats to your sister. I'm curious which of our many colleges she went to, but I hope she had a good experience too. And yeah, but good job driving in snow for the first time. That's awesome. And yeah, hopefully it wasn't too nerve-wracking. Hopefully you maybe even had some fun with it. That's awesome. And it sounds like Johnny says the sound cut out for a minute there. Hopefully it came back. If not, maybe I've just been talking into the void for the past 20 minutes or however long, so I'm behind my comments. But I think, okay, we still got discussion going. So I think that hopefully we're still doing good here. But let me see. Mr. 705 says, it sounds like you're really busy these days. Is there any TV shows you and Beth are watching? Pluribus is really good. I've heard it is. My in-laws were just recommending that the other day. But yeah, don't really have too much time to watch. If we keep up with SNL and South Park, I'm a little iffy on, because it's really really gotten extreme in the past couple episodes. But we were trying to keep up with those two. We also really like watching St. Dennis Medical. Is another fun one we've been enjoying. We really want to watch the new season of Only Murders in the Building. Just haven't had the time to sit down and watch that yet, but we've always enjoyed that. And then we actually really have been enjoying earlier this year, again, before things got crazy. We enjoyed watching Celebrity Jeopardy, which is hosted by Colin Jost, which is a fun one. So that's been most of our lineup here. Beth watches stuff because she's got a lot more free time than I do, so she's watching reality shows and stuff like that. But as far as stuff we watch together, that's pretty much the extent of it. I don't think there's anything else. Next year, I'll definitely be watching the TV show that I was an extra in, the past couple of months here. So that's going to be an Apple TV show. There was a John Hamm Apple TV show, I think called like The Neighbors or something, that I really wanted to watch. Just didn't have a chance to watch that yet, but I definitely want to watch the one at least that I'm in next year just to see how much screen time I actually end up getting, with all the editing and stuff. But so that show doesn't have an official title yet. The working titles were Parallax and Lazarus. It'll probably be called something else once it finally comes out. But if you see a thriller about a serial killer pop up on Apple TV next year, that's probably the one that I was in. And of course, I'll probably let you guys know once that is out and I know more about it. I'll let you guys know what episodes to look out for me. And if you do happen to watch it, it's supposedly going to be really gruesome. So it might not be for everyone, but that'll be another one I'll be planning on watching. But let me see. Vince says, have you ever thought about, okay, yeah, we covered the rideshare thing. And unfortunately I can't use the press cards for that because I think with all those, services, Uber Eats and stuff, you have to always put in like, here's the car, here's the license plate, and you have to have everything all linked up. And if I'm swapping cars every week, that'd probably look suspicious to Uber Eats and stuff. And I don't know if the car companies would like that either. And yeah, unfortunately the leases just don't let me do it with leased cars. Lantern Tail says there's some horror stories for Uber drivers. People nowadays are so ungrateful. Yeah, I'm sure. Absolutely. And Darnell says, I don't want economy tires on an RS3, or you don't want economy tires on an RS3. Just go ahead and pay for the Pilot Sports as they wear. Yeah, I mean, and getting back to that, discussion from earlier, I mean, the Pilot Sports do wear pretty well. I mean, my Bullet had them, the Pilot Sport 4, and I managed to get, I mean, they were like 20,000 miles, which isn't amazing, before they got kind of low. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's not great, but I've seen some people even get, higher, like 30,000 miles out of Pilot Sport 4S. So, I mean, pretty good for a tire that's so capable and so grippy. They're doing a really good job of balancing all those, components and making sure you don't have to have quite as much of a compromise as you did in the past. Mel's says, hey, Matt, I wanted to ask about Infiniti QX50. I got a 2020 model used, and I find that it accelerates really slowly from a stop. Did you feel that when driving it? No, I didn't really. The CVT is pretty responsive. The turbo is fairly responsive. Now the response is a little wonky. So I know with that VC turbo motor, I know there was a few times where, it was kind of like the boost was almost like an on-off switch, and it was a little bit of a guessing game as far as how much power you're going to get out of it. But it never felt like slower. I'm like, why is it not accelerating? So I would maybe go get it checked out just to see if there's anything wrong. Because that's not, a slow car. I mean, you have a turbo, you have a decent amount of power. You shouldn't feel like it's really slow from a stop. That would be a warning sign to me that something might be off, unfortunately. Best of luck. Hopefully you can get it sorted, and sorry to hear that you're dealing with that, because that's not a normal QX50 experience, I don't think. And Tastebud says that the courier thing was it'd be about 18 hours of 60 plus miles per hour nonstop. Yeah, that sounds a little hard to believe, honestly. I mean, I guess that still leaves you 6 hours of sleep, but that means that you're eating on the run, you're doing everything on the run, and at high speeds too. Yeah, maybe that's just like, a slight exaggeration for them. I don't know. Or maybe that's actually what they do. I don't know. Interesting. And Darnell says he drove back from Pennsylvania to Louisiana over Thanksgiving, did 1,225 miles in one session. Wow. All right. Well, so you've shown you can do it. So one session. So if we're doing the same math as Tastebud provided here, that would mean you guys were on the road for almost 20 hours or something like that. That's impressive. Yeah, I'd like to actually try my limits. Probably not a great idea, but I'd love to do some kind of high mileage drive someday. Even I've always wanted to do a cross country drive. That would be kind of fun to just see how. I mean, because I would want to take my time though and kind of enjoy it, but it'd be fun to see just how much you can cover in a day. but I've never had a reason to do insane driving. I mean, one of the longest driving days for me, I think, and it wasn't even that bad, was I drove to Philadelphia and back in the same day. Um, that wasn't crazy. Maybe one of the longer ones, I went back in my college days. There was a day where I drove from Pittsburgh to Columbus, Ohio for a car show, went back to Pittsburgh, and then continued on from Pittsburgh to Blacksburg, Virginia. So that would have been, it's about 3.5 hours to Columbus. I didn't do all the driving though. I was kind of passenger for a lot of that because that was back in my days of running around with the exotic car crowd. But I was driving for some of that. But regardless, I was on the road for 7 plus 5.5 for the Blacksburg drive. So yeah, so I guess I was on the road for 12.5 hours. That's not really that crazy. But I remember feeling pretty exhausted even in my more energetic days at that amount of driving. But I'm sure there's nothing coffee can't fix, right? So it'd be fun to try someday. But kudos to you, Darnell. That's quite a haul. And that's impressive. Let me see. Luke says, I only have 11 legal hours of driving per day. The best I can do is maybe 730 if I'm in like Arizona or something. An average day, I do 550 to 625 miles. Crazy. Well, thanks for your insight there. I was always curious exactly how many miles 18-wheeler drivers do in a day typically. So that's still a lot though. But yeah, glad it's not insanely stressful, hopefully, to do, in a super high mileage amount. But thanks for letting us know, Luke. And let me see. GT says, hey, Matt, would you recommend an Acura ILX or Fiesta ST? Planning to own long-term and as a daily. I mean, I guess it depends on how long, because both of those cars, I don't know how, I mean, because they're both kind of starting from a dated standpoint. You probably are finding one that already has a decent amount of miles on it. So I don't know if I would expect 10 more years out of either of those cars. But if you're going to keep it maybe 5 to 10, something like that, I would recommend the ILX for that. Just because it's, a Honda motor. It's the old Honda motors, the K20 or K24, or whatever. So, and especially, I don't know if you can find one with a manual, but the manual, I think you're going to have probably a little less issues than the dual clutch, which was kind of a newer, more niche thing for Acura. So that I'd be a little nervous about. I mean, it might be very reliable. I just don't know enough about that dual clutch long term and how it's held up. But if you're doing a manual ILX, I think that I could recommend for, as long as you keep it maintained. I think that motor should go 1,000,000 miles, in that. Fiesta ST, they have been surprisingly more reliable, I think, than people expected. Do I think they have much life beyond 200,000 miles without doing, a rebuild or, some really extensive work? Probably not. So again, just comes down to how many miles you plan on putting on them. And, because if you're doing 10 years of low miles, then I'd say either one of those should probably be fine. From a fun standpoint, Fiesta ST is hands down the more fun car of the two. But if you're just going for longevity, ILX, I think, would probably be the safer bet there. So hopefully that helps you a little bit. And again, I do car advice here on my website if you want to have a one-on-one chat as well. And Lantern Tail says Waymos are going to use Ioniq 5 soon. Let's see how they hold up to all sorts of passengers and locations. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. Yeah, I mean, the I-Paces have held up really well. So if that's any indication, I'm sure the Ioniq 5s will hold up just fine, hopefully. So, yeah. And B Metro says, I would line you up with my buddy who does medical courier work for Minot, I'm always saying that wrong. I know. Minot, I think is the way you said to pronounce it. Minot, North Dakota to Sydney, Nebraska, 450 miles a day in a Ford Transit, but the company is closing at the end of the year. It would cure you of wanting to drive in the snow, especially with a rear-wheel drive billboard. I bet that would not be fun because I'm sure the crosswinds and stuff probably throw that thing around all over the place. So yeah, that would not be fun. I think the courier jobs that sound cool to me are the ones where you get to drive your own car. And there are some that let you do that as long as your car can haul the stuff that needs to be hauled. But that would be the kind of fun way to do it, I think. Because yeah, if you're in a van, I would not want to drive any of those vans for more than 50 miles, at all. So, but yeah, if you actually use your own car, that's when I think could be pretty fun for a car enthusiast potentially. That's unfortunate the company's closing at the end of the year though. If anyone else knows of any courier stuff, let me know, because again, it could be a nice backup to have if the channel ends up not panning out here. But hopefully everything works out. But anyway, Raphael also says, yeah, Matt just said he's going to have 11 shots of whiskey on the next live stream. Maybe not 11. We'll see. That would just be an absolute mess. But yeah, hopefully we'll have some imbibing here on the next live stream here. But also, Mitchell said it's actually Sydney, Montana to Sydney, New England would be far more than 450 miles a day. Gotcha. And Nico says, since their window closed, are the Chiefs considered a dynasty from 2018 to 2025? I haven't followed, so if someone else can weigh in on that. I know nothing about the NFL right now. Used to follow the Steelers, but don't have time for that either, and don't really care, honestly. I'd like to watch baseball if I ever had the time, but not into football, honestly. But let me see here. B. Mitchell says, mine it to Williston, to Sydney, Montana, to Scobie, Montana on a circuit can get real old real fast this time of year. Interesting. Even in something awesome, because I feel like even if you're in like something that's like, really capable, like if you're driving in a bunch of snow, I mean, I'm sure you just have to deal with all the traffic, which would be the kind of the not fun part. But like, if you were doing that drive in crazy weather in like a new 4Runner or something, I think it'd be kind of, a fun, exciting adventure and like I'm conquering the elements or something, or doing it in like a Raptor or something. I don't know. Maybe I'm just naive. I'm sure I'm just naive, but it sounds fun in theory to me. I don't know. Mr. 705 says, I'm pretty sure all of you, especially here, want to see you succeed, so don't feel like posting too much or trying something different might put us off from watching. Well, thank you for the reassurance there. And yeah, and and also I looked around, I look at the channels that I aspire to, get similar amounts of views to. Again, they're posting daily, and someone keeps watching in large numbers, whether it's the same people or it's new audiences each time, I don't know. But, there's clear examples that daily uploads in the car niche can get good views if, you have the audience for it and you have the right topics or cars or whatever. So that's really why I'm trying to be inspired by those others and say, look, they're doing it. There's no reason I can't too. And just really trying to do that, is the goal, hopefully. And Mr. 705 also says, I'm in Ontario, Canada, and just built a 26 RS3, and it came to $95,960, not including tax. I added all the options. Wow, that is nuts. I'm so sorry you guys have such high prices on stuff. There's a lot of other really great perks in Canada, though, so I'm sure it all works out. I would happily trade or just join you over there if it was easy to do. But Canada doesn't seem like they want a ton of Americans, understandably so. But man, that's crazy about the pricing. And Danny says it was the 2.5 liter in the Rabbits and the Jettas. Yeah, okay, so that's the half of a Lamborghini V10 that they just sliced in half, made it an economy car engine for whatever reason, and fun days at Volkswagen back then with that stuff. It's just kind of crazy. And Vince says, what car company you've dealt with has been the nicest towards you? Honestly, I mean, most of them have been very good to me as far as just easy to work with. Honestly, it's easier to, talk about the ones that are harder to work with or the ones that just straight up haven't wanted to work with me. Because I mean, as far as the nicest, I think the one that really has, well, actually there's multiples, but I think when I look at the invites, especially because to me, that's kind of my barometer for how much a car company is into me is how many invites I get to drives and stuff. Toyota invites me to pretty much every single thing they do. Now, there's a few little things in the past couple of years that they haven't invited me to because they've been very small things and it's just the big fish that go. But basically, I get almost every Toyota invite. And so for that reason, I think the Toyota has probably been the nicest to me. And that makes it easier to cover their products because I have easy access. It's it's not like pulling teeth trying to get press cards or trying to go on events. So I think that that's been one of the best, and I that is a very nice thing. Now I don't let it again sway my opinion. That's not the reason why the GR Curl is my favorite or anything, but like it makes it it's just nice to be invited. It's nice to be included. I'm one of those people. You might have seen the meme going around of people that just say, "Sometimes I don't want to go, but I just want to be invited." And that's kind of how I feel about car events. Sometimes it's an honor to be invited to these things, and I like that even if I do turn down some of them. But I love that Toyota has basically invited me to almost everything. GM has also been very good to me. They have invited me to most things, but it's been kind of still a kind of a flip of the coin whether or not I get invited to some of the stuff from them. But I always have to appreciate GM because they were the first ones to take a chance on me and to give me press cars. They reached out and said, "Hey, you're getting tons of views on these dealership videos. Do you want to come on a program? Do you want to get some press cars?" And so GM was the first, and that really opened the floodgates to everyone else because then I was able to say, well, GM sends me stuff. I'm getting Cadillacs. You should surely be able to send me Kias or whatever the case is. And that was really the great thing to help get my foot in the door with the other companies. But also Fiat Chrysler, now Stellantis, obviously, they were the second ones too. And I remember, the early days, reaching out to them, and they were another one of the ones who worked with me even in the Subaru Direct fan days and said, yes, we'll work with you, even though you have a competitor's name in your username there, like we'll send you stuff. We'll take a chance on this. And so I always do have some gratitude towards those companies and those people who, took a chance on me when others weren't. But I mean, these days, most of the main companies are always, very nice, and most are fairly easy to work with. Again, sometimes I'm like, annoyed I don't get invited on something or whatever. But the companies these days just like that still will not work with me. It's mostly just, I mean, BMW is one of the big ones I still have a blind spot on. They have just in the past couple of years sent me like a press car or two a year, but they still never invite me on any of the trips. And the reason why they don't give me press cars, they say they have a mileage limitation. And other companies have used that as well in the past, but that these days doesn't hold up because like Aston Martin sent me a press car this year. So like if they can send an Aston Martin up for, a week for me, BMW can send me a 3 Series, and they just don't. So like they're one of the ones that I think, it's just been the hardest to work with. I've, reached out a bunch and said, look, I'm excited about this thing, whatever it is. I want to, do a review on it, and they just they're like, oh well, you're too far away. I'm like, okay, well then invite me on the media drives. Nope, not doing that either. So it's like, all right, well then you actually just probably don't want to hear my opinion on your cars, and that's fine. Again, they've started to send me a couple of things in the past year or two here, so I'm grateful for it, and hopefully more of that comes. But I've started to not worry about invites and stuff more because again, I'm turning down more and more, and it's also just like I'll take what I can get. Otherwise, I got all these great dealer contacts now. I can go out and get whatever I want for the most part that way anyway. I'm not sweating it. If I'm, but I mean, that's why I still have yet to drive the current generation M3, which is almost done with this generation, but I still have never driven one. That's because BMW won't give me one. They don't show up at the used lots that I work with. And no owners have actually offered them either within any kind of reasonable distance. So people always ask me, what do you think about the M3? I have no idea. Never driven it. Drove the old ones, but and so that's where it's actually a disadvantage for car companies because I could recommend the M3 if one, people don't care about the front end styling, but also if I was actually able to drive it, it might be fantastic. I'm sure it is, but like I can't say for sure because I haven't driven it. And again, I'm not the only person out there giving recommendations. It's not like my opinion matters that much to them, but there's probably a couple opportunities where I could have maybe helped someone get into an M3, but I didn't have that opportunity to give any kind of feedback there. So, it is what it is. There's a few other companies like Bentley. Bentley, obviously, they're Bentley. They don't have to give anyone cars, but they give some real small YouTubers cars and send stuff and spend the money to give loans to some real small YouTubers. And then I'm like, hey, I'm over here with almost 500,000 subscribers. I love Bentleys. I would be the biggest cheerleader for them if I got them as press cars. I mean, again, I'm sure there's shortcomings. I would share those shortcomings as well. But I would love to have Bentley press cars, and I do the best review possible, and I think it'd get decent views. But they're just like, nope, sorry, you don't qualify for what we're looking for. I'm like, all right, sounds good. So, there's some companies like that, but I don't ever feel entitled to anything because again, I realize there's way bigger channels that are more worthy of those press loans and stuff. So, I ask, and it is what it is. But, I'm always just grateful for the companies that do bother to send cars to little old me. Let me see. JP likes the Puma jacket. I used to have a similar one. Yeah, these are so comfy, especially just on the weekends, just zip them up, and it's always great. So I'm glad you like it. Thanks for the compliment. And Nico says, my Sonic the Hedgehog emblem came in the mail today. I'm taking off the GT badge and putting on Sonic in the spring. Nice. That'll be fun. And Lancelot, appreciate the little emoji there. And he says he's heard Tesla's customer service and support is very lacking. Yeah, I mean, I've heard repairs take a long time. Maybe that's better now. I don't know. But yeah. Hopefully all the Tesla stuff has gotten better. But I still mostly only hear negative stuff most of the time. And Lancelot says when he hears full self-driving, he thinks of the TV show Knight Rider. Yep. Yeah. And that's kind of what everyone's going for, as something like that. But we'll see how long it takes before we actually get there safely and reliably. And Nico says, what if I'm beyond wasted and banned from Ubers and taxis? There is no full self-driving that can take me home. Not yet. No. I think we're still a few years away from that. I know there are car companies that have said, I think, who was it that said in the past week or past few weeks here? Someone just came out saying they are, I think maybe it was Mercedes. I don't know, but someone has just said they want to get to a level 4 pretty soon, where they the kind where you're able to not pay attention. And the car actually tells you don't have to pay attention anymore, and it's fully handled. So I think we may start to see the very beginnings of that, before the end of the decade here. But it's just going to take time. And the ultimate thing is the liability component. Who is going to be liable? If you start telling people that they're not responsible for their car anymore, then the car company's going to have to pay the lawsuits when the car crashes and hurts somebody. The car company's going to have to pay for the infractions that happen if it does the wrong thing. And that's the biggest component. I don't know how that's going to resolve itself with privately owned cars. And I think this is why Waymo and things like that, are a little bit more streamlined, because with that, it's just it's just on Waymo. And everyone understands, you're a rider. You're not owning, you're not responsible for the car. You're not responsible for anything else. You're just the rider. And so everything's on Waymo's shoulders, and they've accepted that for their cars and their circumstances that they've programmed for in their approved cities. So they have, found the happy medium as far as risk and liability for that stuff. And I think, they're making it work for them in that instance, but spreading that out to, the rest of the country, where you have more unpredictable roads, and you have, trickier intersections, and you have, rural roads where, things aren't clearly mapped, or road markings aren't very well done, things where you need a little human intuition, where I think they're going to start running into some trouble. And I think that's what's going to slow things down. Is it's great in a city center, and it's great as a rideshare thing. And I think, I think when you look at, from that liability standpoint, it seems to me like the car world Eventually, we'll probably just go to a mostly rideshare model. Um, Obviously, there's always going to be people who want to own a car and hold on to a car, and collect cars and all that stuff. But if insurance gets so expensive for driven vehicles, I think it's going to be a luxury for the rich, pretty much, to drive yourself eventually. Again, this is a long ways off, but I think that it's gonna be kind of tricky to navigate, but I think that's the end goal, is just like ride share everything is kind of where everyone sees everything going. And so in the meantime, though, it's like, okay, well, how do we navigate this? Do we try and put full self-driving stuff into everyone else's cars that they personally own? Or do we just let that kind of have the assistance stuff and stop there and pour all the autonomous stuff into the rideshare things instead? And how do we do that? So it'll be interesting to see. You know, I don't know exactly where it's all going to go, but I think, to me, the liability is still the biggest problem, for the personal stuff. And let me see, but yeah, Nico, if you do have Waymo, and I don't know if Waymo is in your area, but if it is, definitely that's, yeah, like Lantern Tail suggested, that's probably the way to go for the time being. And or just make sure you have a friend that can drive you home. Get a DD. Or have someone who doesn't go out with you. They can pick you up if you give them a call. And let me see. Yeah, Danny says, yeah, the twin turbo V6 was the RS4 and the dreaded 2.7T with a 6-speed. Yeah, which is even in the regular S4. And yeah, I remember that thing having so many issues. And yeah, he says there's no Waymo in their area yet. And I see OKS Basis also works in IT and feels like they work 25 hours a day, 8 days a week. Well, sorry you guys have to deal with that. That's got to be rough. And I see Nico says he says IT seems easy. Just restart whatever the device is and it works 99% of the time. And he's OKS Basis says 8 times out of 10 that does fix the issue. It's so funny. I don't know why people don't just do that still. Like, it's been so long with computers. You think people would have tried that without having to bother an IT person. Oh man. And see, Nico says, yeah, the sound cut out. And I see Mr. 705 says it's been cutting out as well. So hopefully it's working okay. And Fester says his sister went to Pitt and got her doctorate in physical therapy, I think, if that's, or maybe physicians. Yeah, anyway, PT. I know there's a few interpretations of PT. So anyway, that's awesome. She got a doctorate. And Saturday was bad and I chickened out with driving. Even my Uber almost got stuck a few times. They didn't plow or salt the roads. Today was way better. That's good. Yeah, sometimes it takes them a little while to get caught up, but eventually just give them some time and everything gets cleared out pretty quickly. And same here. Like, I woke up this morning with completely covered roads, but by, I don't know when it was, like 9:30 a.m. they were all cleaned up already, so it's not too bad typically. And Lantern says, why do cars all look the same nowadays? The interior is too big, or too with the big screens. It's not a good design choice in some models. Yeah, I mean, I think the big screen thing is just, the fad. I truly think that's not going to last forever. I think we're going to go to more head-up display kind of stuff in the future. But the cars looking the same, I don't know. I mean, I personally don't agree. To me, things look a lot more different than they used to. I mean, back in the days when everything had round headlights, back in the days when everything had square, rectangular, steel beam little unit, lights and stuff in the 80s. And I mean, for a long time, I think cars did actually look really similar. And I think once we got into the 90s and into the 2000s, you finally had more flexibility with headlights. You had more flexibility with taillights. You had more creativity you're able to do. And I think ever since then, to me at least, cars have looked more different now than they have for the entire 20th century, pretty much. But I know a lot of people, I've heard that complain a lot. There's a lot of people that do think like things all look the same. I've tried to see it. I can't see it personally. But yeah, I think we're kind of spoiled with all the awesome stuff that it's out there these days, honestly. But Nico says, I'm so impressed with the ZF 8-speed transmission. Felt like it was a DCT. The 10-speed tranny on the Mustang is not good. I know. But if you go to the dual clutch in the GT500 and the C8 Corvette, that's very good. If you want to upgrade your pony someday, go for the GT 500, get that DCT, or go for a manual if you can. Because 10 speed, I do not like the 10 speed in the Mustang or any of the Fords that have it. It's just terrible. And Theodore asks if I drink a lot of coffee. I usually try and keep it to 1 to 2 cups a day. I always have one in the morning, but in the evening, it depends on how burnt out I am from the day and how late I need to work till. But usually I'll have maybe like a coffee around dinner time, and that'll usually keep me going until midnight. Typically, sometimes I have one in the middle of the day, but it's been a long time since I've had 3 cups of coffee in a day. Typically, that's a little much for me. So I don't want to go overboard with the caffeine and then end up being really dependent on it. And JG, thanks for saying hi from Florida. And Lantern Tales says a guy had a 2007 Tundra. He kept for 10 years and did 1 million miles. Toyota bought it back and gifted him a V8 Tundra that was new at the time. He got 1 million miles on it as well. He's a contractor working with oil companies and used the truck like a truck. Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah, that's awesome that guy, they gave him a new one and then he got 1 million miles out of that. I'm curious if he's running the new Tundra now or not, and how that's holding up for him. But yeah, that's the best testament to those things. I think that's why, because those stories got a lot of publicity, and I think that's why so many people just will not give up those old V8 Toyotas, because it's just like they are truly bulletproof and they'll just go forever. Nico says niche is pronounced as niche. No. Yeah, I think some people say niche still, though. Other people say niche. I think it's kind of a tomato kind of thing. I don't know. Maybe I'm saying it wrong. I don't know, but I've always heard it used kind of interchangeably. B. Mitchell says, okay, talking about the cold there, and to Lanswath. And Nico says some cars are a bit cheaper, like my Mustang GT, after you adjust for currency in Canada. Well, that's good that some stuff's not crazy then. Let's say to drink again for the other GR Corolla mentioned there. And Lantern says, what about Subaru? Are they nice to you? Subaru, they invite me on about 50% of the media drives that happen. Recently, I guess this year it's been about 50%. For some reason, they invited me on the BRZ launch for the 2nd gen here, and they invited me on the WX launch. And then they didn't invite me on anything for like years. Because I think WRX was end of 21. I think BRZ was earlier that year, if I remember correctly. So 2021 did a bunch of stuff with Subaru. I guess by a bunch, I mean 2. I did one with them in 2020, actually. It was one of the few pandemic trips that I did because it was a drivable one. But then, yeah, from 2022 to 2024, I don't think I got a single invite from them at all. I got press cars all the time, but and then 2025 they started inviting me on stuff again, and so yeah, I'm hoping to continue to go on more Subaru events, because I know that those typically do pretty well on the channel regardless of what kind they were. I did just get an invite for one. I don't want to give it away in case there's anything under embargo or whatever. But there is another Subaru drive coming up soon. I turned it down because as much as I think it would do decent views, it's a trip that's a pain to get to. And again, because of like these news videos this week, I was able to do 3 videos. I mean, they didn't do a ton of views, but 3 videos in 3 days versus doing a trip where I'm out of the office here for 3 days, 2 of those days on an airplane, one of those days driving all day, not being able to do any other work. So it's just a hard sell unless it's, something that's really, really good. And I've just found that for me, the Subaru reviews are fine to do as press cars. People don't need it to be out right at the embargo. The press car ones do really well too. So I'm just like, you know what? For this one that's coming up, I'm going to wait. I think the press trips for next year that I'm really going to say yes to are the ones where there's multiple things. And there's more and more of those where it's like, hey, we're doing 2 cars in this one, or we're doing 2 in a reveal, or we're doing a reveal and a car. At least if there's more than one thing to film, then it's like, okay, well, this is maybe a little bit more worth my while. But the single car things, especially when it's a pain, like this Subaru trip that I turned down. Again, this is going to sound so spoiled, so I apologize, but It's a trip to like it would be in like Northern California, like Napa Valley kind of area, which is a very popular spot. Journalists love it, car companies love it. You know, it's always like, oh, let's go to Napa, which again, it's a very nice place once you're there. The problem is whenever you're doing it as a 72-hour trip where I am on a plane all day to get there, and it's a long day of travel because to get to Napa, if you've never been there before, so especially from the East Coast, it's bad. And if you're on the West Coast, it's not a big deal. But for all of us East Coasters, all of us hate it because you're flying across the country all day. You land in either SFO or some of them have also been flying into where's the other one that they flew into? It was kind of a nice hack to fly into an airport and it wasn't SFO. But anyway, you fly, for example, into San Francisco. It's typically what you do. Fly into San Francisco. You got to get out of San Francisco, which is a headache because the traffic is so bad. Basically, you're in a car for 2 hours after you've just flown all day just to get to the hotel. And nobody wants that. It's just like it's no fun to do that. So it's a really long travel day. And then again, bright and early the next morning, driving all day in a car. Again, it's very fun, and you have a nice dinner and all that stuff. And then you go to sleep, and you have to wake up at like 2 a.m. if you're on the East Coast. If you're going to the East Coast, you got to wake up at 2 a.m. because you got to get in a car so that you can actually get to San Francisco before the traffic gets insane. And so that means usually you're taking, like a 5 a.m. flight. So you got to get there at 4 a.m. and you got to get in the car at 2 a.m. In the morning to drive there, get on a plane. You're just exhausted from driving the whole previous day, and we're still recovering from the jet lag and everything else from just getting there 48 hours before or 24 hours before. And then, you got to do the whole thing all over again. And then the opposite way, you're losing way more time with the time change. And then you kill an entire day on the way back, and you've been up since 2 a.m. And you're getting home maybe by dinner time if you're lucky, so like it's a lot for a one car review, especially if it's something I'm not guaranteed to get a zillion views on, so that's kind of where I draw the line. The Napa Valley trips, I say no to. And I know it's insane to hear because anyone would probably jump on a free trip to wine country. But just, whenever you do this as your job, the glamour falls away real quick. And it's just, I'm there for the car. Yeah, sure. It's nice to see vineyards everywhere I drive, but like, I'm there for the car, I'm not sightseeing. If I could actually take my time and be there for a week or something, I'd be totally into it, but not for 72 hours, 24 of that actually on the ground in the place where I'm going. But anyway, let me see here. But yeah, I'm glad that I've had a better relationship with Subaru in the past year here. And V. Mitchell says his Transit once got blown sideways down an icy North Dakota Highway 5 by the former Fortuna Air Station radar base, the highest elevation in the region. So the wind is always bad there. Wow, that's crazy. Man, I'd be terrified doing that. I mean, it was bad enough. The one year I remember I was coming back from the Detroit Auto Show back when it was in the middle of January. Or beginning of January there. And I had a Jeep Wrangler 2-door press car. This is right when the JLs first came out. This was, I think, the 2018 Detroit Auto Show. And I think it was, 2018. Yeah, I think that's right. Anyway, and I was driving back, and man, like it was crazy. The crosswinds just in like Ohio were brutal. And I mean, I was getting blown all over the road in that little 2-door Wrangler because I mean, it's you're driving around in a cube pretty much, and so did not enjoy that experience, especially with that short wheelbase. No thanks. That was not fun. And Hamburger's asking if Cadillac's going to send me the Celestiq. I don't know if they're doing a Celestiq press loan program because I know a few people were flown in for driving the Celestiq, but it was a very small program. I didn't get invited to that. And it's such a rare niche car that they don't, I mean, they're making, I think, one a day, possibly, production wise. So, and they're all, custom ordered. They're all by design, by the owner. I mean, it made sense for, Motor Trend and the big dogs to, cover it just so a potential buyer can have an idea of what it drives like, but it's an EV. There's not gonna be a whole lot of surprises there. So I don't think they need to, loan them out, give me a $400,000 car for, a few days or a week, just I would love it. I wouldn't say no, but I don't think they're gonna probably loan me one, and I don't blame them for it. And Lantern Tail says, I sometimes drive around for fun, no destination in mind. This aspect of self-driving cars can't do well. They are good for point-to-point driving. True, for sure. And I think that's yeah, cars will eventually become just a recreation tool. And I think that that's where but the people who are driving for fun, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are just taking their regular commuters out and driving for fun too, for sure. But I think that, a lot of recreational driving is being done in recreational vehicles, and just your fun car or whatever, So, I think that obviously is going to stick around for a long, long time. But yeah, I think it's going to become a little bit less common among the regular people that just have regular cars for driving. I think, yeah, they maybe will find other ways to blow off steam and stuff. I don't know, but yeah, I agree. It's something I enjoy doing if I have the time as well. I love going for a drive for no reason sometimes. And all right, so yeah, we got about 5 more minutes to go here, and then we can wrap up. So I see. Steve, thanks for saying hi. And Vince says, do you have thoughts on people 6-speed swapping into the newer 340i's? I didn't know they were doing that. That's cool. I think that's probably a really fun idea. It would probably make that car even more engaging than it already is. And yeah, 340i is a great car. So absolutely, I think that's a great idea. And hopefully it's not too hard or too expensive, because if it's a pretty easy swap, that's awesome. Hopefully lots of people end up doing that. And Hamburger says, have you seen the Jaguar head designer was allegedly fired? He was also designed the new Jaguar concept paired with the ad that people hated. Yeah, so he got fired. It sounds like there's some stuff behind the scenes where he just wasn't very well liked. We discussed this, I think, a week or two ago too, whenever it happened. And I mean, the guy is very successful. I mean, he's the guy who designed the Land Rover Defender, a bunch of really big hit cars, and I think that the Jag looks fantastic. So I don't know if there's some kind of personal thing behind the scenes that just he wasn't well liked anymore, or what ended up happening with that. I know Jaguars had a few little changes, but like their direction is still unchanged. They're still putting out that car. They're still only doing EVs. They're still making them super expensive, and as a result, the marketing is going to be the same too, because that is, they're marketing that car to New York Fashion Week, to the Met Gala crowd. That's who they want to drive that car, and that's who's going to be able to afford that car. Those people like high fashion stuff, like that ad, which is why, to me, everything made complete sense. And that was actually one of the earliest rants I did. I did that rant, when was that, last year, before we actually, coined the Matt Maran thing. But I went off on that, and that was a very unpopular video. I think it's probably one of my worst dislike to like ratios on a video in a long time. But to me, it was always consistent, and it made complete sense. Like, that's how you would market a car like that. It's not for the F-type, crowd. It's not for, anyone who was mad about Jag. Like, it's, it was not for them. So they can be mad all they want and, go shout at the sky or whatever. But, I think it was totally fine. So I don't know what the issue is with the designer, but I don't think it has anything to do with the car, because the car, according to Jag, the car has been very well received, and whenever they show up at auto shows with it and stuff, people love it. People give them nothing but positive comments on it, and people really are loving it. So I think that they're on the right track, and they know it. So I don't think, people could probably read into the designer firing thing and assume, oh, well, the company is just in chaos and they're just, licking their wounds from all the criticism and stuff. And I don't think that's the case. I think that they're not fazed by that. And I think, yeah, there's got to be something else going on. I could be completely wrong. Maybe they are shaking in their boots and just terrified that the average internet commenter doesn't like their ad or something, but I don't think that's I really don't think that's the reality. So I'm curious to hear maybe someday what the true story is about that. But I think it's a sad loss for them to not have him designing stuff because again, I think that thing looks fantastic, and wherever he goes, I'm sure he's going to make lots of good looking cars for that new company if he decides to continue working. But yeah, crazy stuff. And CNET says they just hit 285,000 miles on their '03 Tundra. Figure I still have 700,000 more to go before I need a new car. Probably. Yeah, you got a good long while. As long as it doesn't rust out from underneath you or anything, you're set. And Lantern Tail says, have you ever tried a Lime bike or any micro mobility service in any of your visits? I actually tried the Lime scooters. I think it was the Lime one. They were in Indianapolis whenever we were there for a Shell event when it was me, Chris Fix, Engineering Explained, Humble Mechanic, Eric the Car Guy. All of us were palling around. And the one night, I think it was Chris who suggested, he's like, hey, let's go out and rent some of those Lime scooters and go run around Indianapolis at night. And I'm like, okay, sounds good. Chris always he has fun ideas, and there's been times even whenever we've been at SEMA and stuff where he's like, hey, let's just go for a walk out in the town, and I'm like, yeah, sounds good, and so he likes going out and adventuring, and I'm happy to tag along, and so we did that on the Lime scooters, and we were flying on those things. I'm very grateful that none of us got hurt because we were zooming and and they're fast, they're fun, and this was kind of before they were the scourge that everyone now kind of considers them to be on cities, but yeah, and it was a really fun way to see Indianapolis and explored a bunch of cool stuff, and it was a really fun time. So that's the only time I've ever done that, but never tried any of the bicycles or anything else like that. And B. Mitchell says, I never fly into SFO. San Jose is the only way to go for that region. That's what it was. Yeah. So the most recent time I went and did one of those Napa trips, they actually said, yeah, let's go to San Jose. And I was like, this is the way. That is absolutely the way to play it. Thanks for reminding me of the airport there. Yeah, that is absolutely the way to go. Although I do have a fan that works at TSA at SFO. It's always fun whenever I would go through there. Always a couple of times actually he was working there, and so I was able to be, hey, how's it going? And just it's always fun, being able to say hi to a viewer, and so that was kind of a cool thing about flying through SFO in the past, and also good because never have to worry about any kind of hassle from TSA or anything. Although I've almost never had an issue with them, knock on wood. I know how to pack and all that now. But anyway, yeah, San Jose is definitely the way to go. You're right. And Alami is asking, hey Matt, any useful life advice for a young adult? Well, this is a good question to maybe round out the end here. So life advice for a young adult, I think that this is a very deep question, so give me a second to kind of process. I mean, I think the one thing that jumps, to mind immediately is just give yourself grace. Give yourself the breathing room. It's a lot to expect someone to figure out, what you want to do for your whole life. And oftentimes you don't end up doing that thing for your whole life, but that's kind of the way it's portrayed, is like, well, you must, and a lot of times with degrees, that is kind of the case, but a lot of people, go to school for one thing, they end up doing something completely different. And, it's, you never know where life takes you, and so I think, if you have a clear interest or a clear path, if you're in that kind of stage in your life, go for it. But don't worry if, you don't have a perfectly clear path or goal or target in mind. Just kind of, try to ride the waves, I guess is the best way to put it. Because I remember that being a very stressful time in my life of like, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go to college. I don't know what to, and just, it's like just a lot. So if you are, I don't know how young you are, but if that is, something that you are encountering or have encountered or will encounter, that's just the one thing I can, I guess, kind of suggest. Otherwise, I think just try to be present. Because I think another thing that I look back on in my younger years, I was always so eager to get to the next point and the next milestone and the next thing. And and always kind of, and I mean, I'm just an ambitious person, so that's always kind of me just trying to like go to the next thing. But like, I think just trying to be present is a healthier approach typically, and just enjoying things, as best you can, even if, I don't know, what your life is like, but if there's things you can enjoy and be present in, just try and enjoy that stuff. And I think the only other thing I'll say is, like for a lot of my young adult life, I was single. And I know a lot of people, they rush into relationships, or they, feel upset about, that if they are single or something. I think that's the only thing is like, for me, like, make sure that you just, know yourself, know what is important to you, know what you value, what you need, what you want, how you like things done, all that kind of stuff. Just, and then make sure that, whenever you are in those kinds of relationships, that you are, aligned with all that kind of stuff. But I think if you don't find yourself first and really know yourself, you don't know, kind of some of that stuff, early on. And so I think, that's one of the nice things about me being single for so long, is I was able to kind of figure a lot of that stuff out. And so I think that's one of the other things. So some people, like, they have high school sweethearts and they go straight into, just getting married young and just all this other stuff. And, you don't really have a lot of time to step back and just do you. And I think doing you is very much I guess poor choice of words, but, just finding yourself and really kind of grounding yourself in all that, is and how you, just want to be, and the kind of person you want to become, and all that kind of stuff. I think is just kind of, I guess, the other little thing I can add. Probably, not the best life advice, but that's just some of the little things I can rattle off the top of my head. I wish I had some more profound advice or something that was more valuable, but that's about it. I think, and the one other thing, as a young adult that I look back on and feel like I am happy is I was never affected by peer pressure, or I always kind of went to the beat of my own drum. And if people wanted to join me, great. If they didn't, I didn't care. And that might be a little antisocial, but like for me, like it kept me out of a lot of trouble, and it kept me out of, I mean, there's many times in my life where I had a clear opportunity to go down a different path, or where if I, wasn't so headstrong, I could have ended up, in some very interesting situations, I'm sure. Because some interesting stuff as a teenager that I encountered. But like, I think knowing again yourself, and also just doing that, and not, trying to be a people pleaser and stuff, I think is also a big perk as well. So hopefully that helps. But best of luck with it all, especially these days. I mean, I was very lucky to be, figuring all that stuff out during a relatively, I mean, I was, going to college in the middle of the recession, so that wasn't great. But like, otherwise, it was a fairly peaceful-ish, time in the world, and not crazy. I can't imagine navigating all that stuff now, and also being, terrified of all the other crazy things going on in the world right now. But best of luck to you, and hope it all works out well for you. And anyway, Decepticon, thanks for stopping by here at the end. I always appreciate your comments. And Lantern Tail says, I was wearing the same shirt, or the same Puma thing here as I was in the Jag video. Interesting. That Jag video, if you like the rants and you missed that one way back when, you can go watch that one if you want to hear an unpopular opinion about the Jag ad video. But anyway, Michelle, thanks for stopping by here at the end. He says, caught the end. Hello from Texas. Moved into my place yesterday and settling in. Drove from North Carolina to Texas, 1,200 miles. The Passat and the TX did great on the road trip. That's awesome. He got about 650 miles on one tank of gas on the Passat too, which I was blown away by. Yeah, that's impressive. The range was reading 700 miles to empty. That's awesome. Yeah, those 2-liter turbo 4s, I think is what probably you have in that Passat. I mean, they are really good on gas when you're taking it easy. Really good motors. And We were just talking earlier in the live. If you have time, you want to play in the background while you're unpacking or whatever. We were talking about high mileage trips earlier in the live stream here. So that's awesome. We did 1,200 miles, and I hope everything went smoothly. And that's awesome. So, oh, he says he has the 1.8T. Okay, nice. Yeah, very efficient. That's awesome. And well, hope Texas treats you well there. Sounds like there's some really nice weather. Most likely you'll be able to enjoy, and you're dodging all the snow here just in time. So hope you enjoy it, and best of luck with getting all set up there. And so yeah, thank you all so much for hanging out here in the live, and glad we were able to answer basically everyone's questions tonight. So see you guys on Wednesday for the last Wednesday live of the year. But again, we'll be back next Sunday with maybe a Santa hat. We'll see if I can find one, and a glass of whiskey, and we can all enjoy. And I can actually join you guys for the GR Corolla drink mentions here next time. So thank you all so much. Have a great week. Stay happy, healthy, and warm. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.